the term used by ex-European Parliament President Martin Schulz to describe the entire bloc, has been adopted by a German group which is calling for all EU nationals to see themselves as Europeans while calling for an end to nationalism. Pulse of Europe wants the EU to grow stronger and remain united, rather than breaking apart as more and more people become disenchanted with the bourgeoisie in Brussels. Founder of the group, Austrian writer Robert Menasse, believes there will be a Europhile revolution. The 44-year-old lawyer said, "It is fair to say that the EU is a creeping revolution, and just because it is creeping doesn't mean it isn't a revolution, because, for the first time in history, a city is producing the framework for a whole continent that has never happened before. This has been progressing in small steps for half a century, and that is a creeping revolution." EU fans push for EU passport and United Armies. Friday, December 8, 2017. David Davis and EU's chief Brexit negotiator Michel Barnier attend a press conference by Theresa May. Pulse of Europe believes the EU began as a coal and steel union but has now been able to control the defense industry on a supranational level. Founders sees themselves as instigators of solidarity, as the movement was a direct reaction to Brexit and Mr. Trump's election victory. The group welcomes the ability of the EU to control nations and whip them into following the same rules. Hans-Jörg Schmidt from Pulse of Europe is calling for an EU identity and an end to political parties which want to put the nationals first. However, there is a backlash which is growing across the bloc. Poland is set to be taken to court by the EU over failure to follow rules, while Austria voted in Nationalist People's Party and Britain voted for Brexit. Viktor Orban's country Hungary has also refused to accept migrant quotas and could soon be punished by the EU. Mr. Schmidt said, "I think we definitely need a European identity in order to expand Europe, and that is not a contradiction next to the nation-state. Just as we have our father and mother, and define ourselves in our existence that way, we can also be French, Italian or German, but also passionate Europeans. We are already familiar with this fragmentation and this petty nationalism, and today it would be absurd for anyone to suggest that Bavaria needs its own army as well as Baden-Württemberg and Hesse, and I think we must also get to a stage in Europe where the monopoly of force, both domestically and out of state, is anchored in a European institution." Creeping revolution? Well, at least a provocative term. It is certainly true that the changes that the European unification process has brought about since 45 are revolutionary in a way, and that this revolution has partially gone unnoticed. Getter Martin Schulz wants further EU integration and member states to follow equal rules. Well, we have to remember things in a historical context over and over again, must not be so oblivious to history, and to the positive things the European Union has done. Hans-Jörg Schmidt. However, Mr. Schmidt thinks the nations currently favoring anti-EU parties will come around for cash. Poland, the Czech Republic and Hungary will not turn their backs completely to the EU, he said, since these countries do not want to lose the regained freedoms by the fall of the Iron Curtain, and when he sits with FPO people and discusses the future of Europe with them, he reminds them how much the Austrian capital is benefiting from the process of European integration. He said, "Well, we have to remember things in a historical context over and over again, must not be so oblivious to history, and to the positive things the European Union has done." The Pulse of Europe co-founder wants to see more than town twinning and trade relationships, as he calls for a common European passport and a single European defense army.